So Xbox exec admits PlayStation has them beat in one key area. So this is coming from Game Rant, Emmanuel Ortiz or Otiz. So he writes, and I'm going to skip a little bit here. In an interview with Kind of Funny, Xbox executive Matt Booty has shared that he feels as though Xbox has been behind Sony when it comes to large tentpole games. Booty states, I think I tend to come at that more that we're paying attention to fan expectations. I think there's a certain kind of game that generates an anticipation that kind of becomes this tentpole moment. It's a game that fits that intersection of everybody can play, and it's also a big world you can inhabit. I think those kind of games are important, and certainly it's been a place where we have not been out in front. We haven't really had that sort of one-to-one with Sony there. Booty continues a bit by saying that Xbox is not done growing and that what's important to the company is making sure that we have those types of games for our fans. It's something that Xbox will continue to work on and seemingly something that is in the middle of accomplishing. As of right now, Xbox has unveiled two notable AAA games coming up with Halo Infinite and Forza Horizon 5, both of which should satisfy fans in the long running. Yeah, so Adam, one, do you think that Microsoft is behind Sony in terms of its tentpole games? Do you think that Xbox needs these tentpole games, and can they deliver on those tentpole games?
To start with question one, of course they are. They're way behind. I mean, it's no question. I mean, we're still having the conversations right now about at the very launch. Like, sure, we make fun of PlayStation for not having nearly as much at launch as well, but they've certainly put out a lot more in terms of big time, games that Microsoft hasn't even come close to, if at all. The second question, sorry, was it do they need to have them, or is it?
Yeah, do they need them?
If their business model requires them to like have these big money games, of course. But I think right now, like, their business model is currently more occupied in just getting subscriptions for Game Pass. So it may not necessarily be the quality that's going to bring a lot of their customers in. It might just be the quantity. That's why you go with Bethesda. That's why, like, all these rumors of more acquisitions are coming in. It makes you consider the possibility that, well, yeah, it's not like they're not going to try to make 9, 10 out of 10 games, but their goal more or less is going to be to try to more flood the market so they get as many people in as many niche areas as they can so that they can maximize their ability to get those subscriptions in. So do they need them? It's honestly a coin flip, because I mean, as it stands right now, like, sure, they didn't hit their growth target that they wanted, as we talked about last week, but they're still growing to a very high degree. They're still doing very well. So you could argue that as of right now, even with the lack of major first-party titles they're coming out with, they're doing just fine. So maybe they don't need them. But would it put them over the edge and really get that key, like, growth they're looking for just happen that much easier and maybe even surpass that? Sure. It probably would make it better, but I don't think it's a need so much as it's probably like it would be a nice to have, I guess, at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you. One, is Xbox behind in terms of tentpole games? Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, we're about one year into these consoles now, give or take. And Sony has released Spider-Man Miles Morales, once again backwards compatible, whatever. Sackboy Big Adventure, once again backwards compatible, whatever. But Ratchet and Clank, Returnal, Kena Bridge of Spirits,
Demon
and
Souls.
this is Demon Souls, and this is a gray area, but like Deathloop, which I know is like a Bethesda game, but it's on exclusive for Sony. That one I'll give as a wash. But like, they've got those exclusives, and for me, I can't really find Xbox exclusives that are like catching people's like interest. Like, I'm seeing things like The Ascent, The Artful Escape, like nothing that's like blowing my mind right now. Yes, Halo and Forza are coming down the pipe. Those are great. And I don't know. I'm not seeing that huge hype for them. So like, I don't know if they do, like, they're certainly behind Sony in those big tentpole games. However, I don't know if Microsoft is a game company that really can and wants to compete with Sony, and in the exclusive department, I mean. And here's why. These two consoles have set themselves up as very different experiences. Sony, I find, both in a good and a bad way, present themselves as a premium experience. You are paying for that console, you're paying the premium for their games. Like, their game prices have gone up. You know, like, it's big that they're now coming to PC. Like, they are a very exclusive and very closed in club when it comes to their games. And their games are fantastic. Like, I'm a Sony pony, whatever. But regardless of what you think of The Last of Us, regardless of what you think of Ghost of Tsushima, like, those games are impressive. From the medium as a whole, it's a very impressive thing what those games accomplish. And I don't know if Microsoft's business strategy has the scale and the scope for what that requires. And not to say that they can't, but right now their main business venture, or the way that they're going about, is through Game Pass. And Game Pass is fantastic. It's cool. It's awesome. Not trying to shit on Game Pass. However, with that subscription model, you cannot charge, like, you are charging the same amount of money for a indie game that took, a couple 100,000 versus a AAA exclusive game like Naughty Dog's Last of Us. Last of Us has that opportunity where they can use that game several times to make that revenue. They sell it as a standalone game first off, create most of the revenue that way. Then they use it to help push their services like PlayStation Plus, PlayStation Now. That's their second source of revenue. And now we're starting to see where they're putting it onto PC. So they have the time and the scope and the scale that they can sort of make those huge $1 million blockbusters. And I don't know if Game Pass facilitates that I can, whether I put in the millions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of man hours into making a massive AAA game experience, I don't know if Game Pass can support that, because I can't charge more or less for Game Pass based on the games that are on there. Does it drive people to the service? Probably, but it's not driving more revenue by having those larger games. There's no incentive for Xbox to invest that kind of capital into those games. And that's not a problem. Like, they're going down two different avenues. I feel like Microsoft's game is quality, but it's quantity as much as quality. Whereas Sony is about the quality and, like, these masterful AAA games. And I'm not, this is coming across very much like me shitting on and console warring with Xbox. I'm not. They have a different strategy and it's working absolutely perfect for them. But I can't see a situation where they're making these games and then they have to come out and say, by the way, here's our new equivalent to Naughty Dog. It is not going to be on Game Pass day one and we will add it later. Because then that kind of divides and splits up Game Pass. And so I think for Xbox, they certainly want to make good games. They want to make, games that people get excited for, but I don't think that they can invest the same time of capital and time and effort and stuff into making a Last of Us, making a Horizon, like those kind of massive online games, or not massive online games, but those massive tentpole games. Am I out in left field, Adam?
No, you might be right down the center field line on that one. But yeah. I really don't know if even Microsoft cares that they have tentpole games or not. Because, like I said, I think their business model might be leaning towards just getting people in the subscription service, and that's all they really give a shit about. They have so much money that I don't think it means much to them if they're, making the same amount of money that they are putting an indie game on than they are having Bethesda making, potentially a really high quality game with whatever Starfield ends up becoming. I don't know if it looks different to them. Whereas with Sony, I think they understand that their business is largely going to be factored in on what they have running at that time. Like, what's the big thing they got to come up next with? And you notice that with their big trailers, like, a lot of times when Xbox, like, you even just compared, like, the E3 to the latest, like, big showcase that Sony did, there's a bunch of trailers scattered in the Xbox one, but did any of them really get, like, big, like, holy shit level things? I would say no. But then you have Spider-Man 2, then you have Wolverine, and you can keep going. You can probably name like 4 or 5 off the top of your head right there. God of War. Yeah, there's so much else. So it's very clear where the two of them seem to see each other as. Sony knows that their business is going to be large in part on the games that they're selling, and Xbox, large in part, just knows that all they got to do is just make that product that they have, which being Game Pass, has a reason for you to go and get it. Now, is it enough reason for you to go buy a console? Well, that depends on if you have a PC or not. But if you have a PC, you're just sitting there being like, well, I might miss a couple of games because they won't put it on PC. But as long as I have Game Pass, I have like probably a 75% of their catalog. I'm good. And it's only costing me what? 10, 15 bucks? No prob. So, I mean, does a tentpole game, like, let's say Sony had this service, like, I want that service to have Uncharted and God of War and all that. But then if you're Sony and you don't have nearly that kind of money to burn, then maybe it's not quite helping you. So I guess in Microsoft's case, yeah, no, I don't think them losing to Sony and tentpole games really is even an issue to them at this point.
Yeah, like I look at something, Sony, you're right, lives and dies by those exclusives, right? No one is buying a PlayStation to play. I mean, someone is, but no one's buying it to play Back for Blood, or no one's buying it exclusively as like Assassin's Creed. Like those third-party games aren't moving the needle for Sony. Like what's really selling them is these massive tentpole games. That's Sony's bread and butter, and that's what they need. For Xbox, their game is about subscriptions and keeping those subscriptions up. And using the example, like I'd say probably one of, if not the most, I think the one game that might bring more people to Game Pass, it's not going to be Forza, it's not going to be Halo, because those ones are games that we've all kind of like, you're either in that camp or you're not. No one's switching over from PlayStation for Halo. Like the PlayStation fanboys have accepted that Halo is forbidden fruit for them. But where it's going to be is it's going to be Starfield, right? And Starfield, we haven't seen much of that game yet. And what might happen is you'll certainly get some some Sony people, and I think you've admitted this yourself, is that you're gonna hop on Game Pass, play it on PC for a little while, and they might get some new subscribers, but after a month or two, those people are gonna bounce out. And so at most, I think it's what is it, like $30 a month or $15 a month for Game Pass,
something like that. I don't know. I don't check my credit card statement anymore.
All right, fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. Go at Adam for credit card fraud.
Please don't.
I'm not advocating that. Do not go after Adam for that. We talked earlier about how little money we make with this, so we don't need to have that headache. But what I'm saying is that game, Starfield, whether it is a 10 out of 10 or a 7 out of 10, will generate as much revenue. Like it won't generate much more. It's not going to move the needle that much for subscribers. And so I don't think they necessarily need to. I think, you want to have games that are appealing to people and that will draw them to Game Pass, but they do not need to be at the level that PlayStation has for their exclusives. And once again, neither of these options is better than the other. Neither is right or wrong. These are two different companies playing in two different fields now. They're playing two separate games. And I don't know if they need to necessarily care too much to compete in each other's space.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna see a point where we're gonna be looking at, like, say, I don't know, maybe E3 next year, or if it's still not back to normal next year, the year after that, assuming it's still going. I don't think we're gonna be looking at those two shows and being like, man, Xbox killed Sony on the games, and everybody's worried. And I don't think people are gonna be like, man, Sony killed Xbox on the games, and they're all thinking, man, Sony's clearly won. I think if you have any sort of like actual awareness of what's going on, you look at it and be like, okay, Sony did what they were supposed to do. They got you excited for their games, so you go buy them day one. And Xbox did exactly what they did by just shoving so much stuff in your face that you go, well, I can pay $15 and I can play all of that.
There's something, yeah, in Game Pass, there's something for everyone. And this is, if I was Xbox, like, don't focus on making your own first party studios. Like, where I would go is, and this is where I feel like the real battleground should be, or is going to be, is in the third party games, right? If Xbox can go to Ubisoft and say, hey, you've got this new Assassin's Creed, whatever, coming out, Assassin's Creed Caveman, like, hey, yeah, sell it on the PlayStation 5, we don't care, but can we also put it on Game Pass? right? Then the situation becomes, hey, if I'm playing most of my games are third-party games, which I imagine they are for a lot of people, it then makes sense for you to go to Game Pass. It makes sense for you to get your Assassin's Creeds, to get your Guardians of the Galaxy, to get those kind of games on Game Pass. It's a much better value. So don't compete where, you know, you're fighting one-on-one. Go where the middle ground is and start carving that out. And I think that's what Xbox is doing with their acquisitions of studios. But I don't know if that necessarily, that just makes it so that people are no longer comparing. Like if it becomes a situation where Tomb Raider is only an Xbox exclusive, then I'm not going to care. It's going to be cut off. I'm going to say, okay, that's now an Xbox game. I don't play that one. But if I'm sitting there at the store and I'm holding a copy of the game, knowing that I can just pay $15 and go try it right now, that's a much better, that's where you're more competitive. And I feel like that may be where Xbox needs to go.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, just honestly keep on the path you're going, and just maybe don't pouty face when you miss your percentage target by like what, 10%?
Something like that.
It's okay. You'll be fine. You're Microsoft. You got money. You're cool.